You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With us again is Matt Lowe.
What's up?
And air traffic control, Jessica Salaji.
I'm here.
Welcome back to our slightly less pasty white guy, Matt Lowe.
Right? Man, I had figured out one thing. I need to retire. Because my kids are like... let me rephrase that. I need to retire and get like butler and maid service. Because my kids are like, why does Dad keep taking his food to the bedroom? And why are all the dirty dishes in the hallway? So, I guess for those of y'all that don't know, on a cruise... when you get finished with room service food or whatnot, you just set it in the floor in the hallway right outside your door, and like the dirty dish fairies come and get it. It's great.
Well, like any hotel, that's how it works. Or you call down to the front desk and tell them to come and get the room service leftovers.
I love how Dave has the ability to make anyone feel like their experiences are neither unique nor or like new. He's like, or well, like any hotel, you idiot.
That's because he's an elitist,
right?
Because I don't have 7 kids.
Dave's like, yeah, that's how. I hope you enjoyed your cruise. They do the same thing at the Ritz, like where
right.
There's no kids.
They did that at the Waldorf Astoria where I was on New Year's.
Actually, that's where we were.
I know. That's why I said it.
And you know what? What I paid for the Waldorf is a fraction of what these people coming to Atlanta for the Super Bowl are paying for like rat hotels.
Oh yeah,
like $1,500 a night with a 3-night minimum to stay at
Super 8.
Yeah, the Claremont Motor Lodge. Yes, that Claremont. It's like $1,800 a night. There's something called like the Red Lion Inn in like College Park that's charging $1,500 a night. I mean, good Lord.
I need to see what the Knights Inn on Fulton Industrial is charging.
And I've heard the price of hookers has gone way up.
Well, like I said, the quality has too. We were talking about that at work today.
I'm guessing a lap dance is $30 now.
I don't know.
You don't, huh?
I don't have a clue.
Jessica,
I don't either. I don't know either. Don't ask me.
No, I was going to say, I enjoyed your podcast today. Your personal podcast. It'd be nice if you cross promoted like I do.
Okay, I'll start.
But no, it was another good one on ballot access. If anybody's out there to look up in the strike zone, it's something we've talked about before. And without us, Jessica makes like logical, cogent, like good arguments for things. And she starts on time, stays on topic, and ends on time. It's the weirdest concept I've ever heard of.
It's like this podcast without all the man jokes and nonsense.
Yeah. What did I say last week? It would be like Rogan, except we have no talent. Well, 2 trailer park girls go around the outside. Guess who's back? Chris Sevier.
Are you blending songs? I mean...
No, that's the intro to that song.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. It's been so long, but... Jeez. I guess it just sounded different with you singing it.
Yeah, you gotta remember, Jessica was like 10.
Hold on. No, I wasn't. I was in middle school, and my mom did not allow Eminem.
Marshall Mathers?
No, not in the house, and not in the car. Like, it was taboo. And then he came out with another song, and she's like, I love this song. That was the end of that.
I'm guessing that's the one he did with Dido, or whatever her name is. the touching song about the kid killing himself. Anyway, Chris Sevier is back. And he's working on border wall funding with porn funds. Arizona State Representative Gail Griffin recently introduced a House bill that would require companies, we've heard this before, that sell electronics to install a porn filter and a $20 fee to have it disabled.
Boy, oh boy. This is just gold. What's great is that, like, you can just see headlines now and know that he's behind it. Like, everyone knows. Everyone knows who he is. And yet, lawmakers still carry his legislation.
So, here's the thing, though. They've abandoned their whole thing, because here and every other state where it popped up in, it was this money was going to go to fund, sex trafficking and
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Read the story.
I didn't read the story, but I'm saying
it's going to go to it's going to the John McCain Fund to end sex trafficking. The argument is putting the wall up ends the
whatever. That's crap. No, because this was it's going to the damn wall. That's not sex trafficking. That's mental gymnastics, is what that is.
And I do like how they're naming the fund after a jerk off.
Oh,
John McCain.
I think
my French. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah, I was gonna do my John McCain impersonation and just completely insult the recently dead.
Damn.
Has it been long enough? I mean, do we have to wait 150 years like we did for Lincoln to insult him?
No, please do it now. My favorite part of the stories on this, though, is the quote where it says, at least 18 states have seen some form of Sevier's bill appear, all of which have been shot down.
I have to make an admission to you guys. I played the a-hole in a meeting this morning. It's one of those community type of chamber of commerce. This very sweet little old lady gets up and says her thing is trying to end sex trafficking, and says sex trafficking is a $38 billion a year business. And I couldn't help myself. But I said, I'm in the wrong damn business. Everybody but the poor little old lady thought that was hilarious. I am a horrible person.
No, dog.
But who are these lawmakers that don't have the Googles, the Google machine?
Gail Griffin? No, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know very many. I mean, the ones who are. Even the principled lawmakers, I don't know anyone who Googles who's supporting something before they take on a task or an initiative, because they either support growing government or they don't. And I don't know. I've never heard of somebody really researching who's supporting an initiative. You never see lawmakers come out against the people behind a bill.
No, but if you see this guy show up, and his name's Chris Sevier, and you don't even Google his name. Nobody at the staff says, gee, who is this guy, this lawyer from Tennessee that's not a lawyer anymore?
Right.
I mean,
and why isn't he a lawyer anymore?
Right. And Googling his name would take, was it half a second to pull up 3 billion stories on him, and all you have to do is start clicking through them and hear all the crazy stuff he does. I mean, even the story that came across referenced his trying to marry a laptop. I mean, nobody does their research. He's just going to make his way across all 50 states before he moves on to Canada.
I bet he'll get something passed in Canada.
Oh, yeah, eh?
Yeah. Actually, no, I don't know. They may not, because like sexual contact and things of that nature are protected by their constitution there. That's why, like, strippers in Canadian strip clubs can touch.
Do tell.
You didn't know that?
No, I did. I'd heard that before. Here's the thing. There are a lot of lonely Canucks living in cabins all over the place that would be upset if they had to pay, I don't know how much it is in Canadian, $80 to access porn on their computers.
Right.
Man, it's not even. It's not that he tried to introduce it once. This is now number 20 of places that he has moved. I mean, that's 40% of the states in this union that he has tried this in, and people keep throwing it up there to see if it'll stick.
Yep.
Speaking of callbacks, we've talked about paternal rights in the court system. This old boy in Oklahoma thought he knocked up his high school girlfriend and does the right thing by marrying her. Lo and behold, it doesn't work out. And they get divorced after she had a son. He decides, well, I'm going to have this boy tested. And it comes back, he's not the father. 0% is what it says in the story, Jessica. 0.
First of all, holy crap. Can you imagine?
Oddly enough, yes.
I mean, wow.
I had that happen to a cousin of mine. He got divorced after 10 years. And found out his 8 and 6-year-old were not his.
Both of them? Oh my word.
Yeah, she was a whore.
Wow. You don't say. That's terrible.
Yeah, but so the shitty part of this story is, he goes through the court system, and the judge ordered him to take another DNA test. It got the same result, and then he was ordered to pay child support anyway, because there's an Oklahoma law that says that men must question the paternity within 2 years of the child's birth. And it was 3.
Which doesn't make any sense to me, though. Like, okay, question the paternity, like, are they saying because he was put on the birth certificate at birth, and is that the reason?
I don't know.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me that, like, you have to accept a child as you. I don't understand it. That seems totally. Because what if there was another father in the picture, and that father wanted rights?
Right.
Then what? Sorry, this guy claimed him? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, don't cross-check him against my DNA. I've heard this for a while now, especially in Georgia, and this dates back to before DNA was accepted science. You couldn't have if you had a child in wedlock, the child was considered legitimate, because the old saying, your daddy's only your daddy because your mama says so. Judge rules police cannot require people to unlock their own iPhones with thumb or iris. The story goes in, the original warrant was for digital devices. Officers also requested that the suspect comply with putting their thumbprint on and unlocking the phone, and judge found that was unconstitutional.
This is an interesting story because I feel like the phones and the security of them has been like I mean, you always see tech nerds commenting on social media about two-factor, whatever it is, and just never unlocking your phone for the police and all of these things. So I really liked the example that they compared this to in a lot of the analysis, in that, like, you can't, it's in your mind. A code is in your mind. The contradiction here with the thumb or the iris, like they're saying, you know, if you have a safe in your house, they can compel you to unlock it if there's a key, but they can't compel you to type in a code because that's in your mind versus a key that is tangible evidence. So I thought this thing with the thumb was like something that's in the middle because your finger is a body part, but they can't compel you to use it.
There had been rulings on this before, and I remembered it from several years ago. And what came out of that ruling was, don't use a fingerprint to unlock your phone. When that technology first came out, use a code, and that was the logic on it, is because the police can take your fingerprint. You know, when they put you in jail, they don't have to get a warrant to get your fingerprint, so they could, you know, through some legal gymnastics, get you to unlock your phone with a fingerprint.
Well, we know from a previous story this year that they can't just sever your finger and do it, so they try to do it to a dead guy. Your finger has to be alive for it to work on the iPhone keypad. Now, I don't know if you get the whole spy thing where you skin the thumb and then put it over your own thumb and then do it, but they got a warrant to unlock somebody's phone, and they went to the funeral and tried to get the corpse to unlock, and it wouldn't work.
I wonder if that was a heat issue. Like it just needed to be warmer.
I think it's an EM. I think it has to do with electromagnetic.
Yeah.
Look, given enough time and desire, could John McAfee figure out how to do it? Of course he can. Of course he can. But it's a interesting ruling, and Jessica, from what you said, is interesting too about the code being in your head. Is that an argument for having an electronic keypad on your safe versus a dial or having a key?
I would say so. I mean, because something you have to produce from your mind falls under the Fifth Amendment, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
That's, I'm like, wait.
Well, and a safe can be drilled. Yeah, that's the thing. They could order a safe to be drilled. They can't drill your iPhone.
If they do.
Unless Chris Sevier has something to say about it.
I would like to know when, in the course of an investigation, like how common it is that they feel like what's on the actual phone that is not obtainable through phone records or text message records, like what is so... I mean, I know people use apps for communication, especially the kids these days, but like how often does this really happen? Not that has any effect on whether or not, like, I think it's legit or not. I'm just wondering...
kids these days. Eh?
My sister, during the course of many of her investigations, gets data off of phones, and my sister strictly investigates child porn.
Well, yeah,
mobile devices is where that's at.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would say that sex trafficking, but the case in California with the little terrorist cell they had was trying to get the information out of that phone with who they were communicating with, who was giving the orders, and that kind of stuff. And that, of course, was post-mortem.
Okay, but, I mean, percentage of cases that are investigated, I just wonder, like, on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, like, is it 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000? I would love to. I know that that kind of information is not available, but I would just like to know how often we're seeking people's phones and the content of them, and how many times we're having to do this instead of the people just offering it up.
I would say it's 1 in 100,000 that is actually pertinent information to a crime that they're investigating.
I would venture to say that it's probably sought in any case involving child molestation and child porn.
Right, but a percentage of overall crime where they stop somebody they suspect of being a dope dealer.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying percentage of overall crime where this is an issue, and I would say that's 1 in 100,000 cases where the cops want every bit of information they can get. That's their job, and the Constitution constrains that for a reason. So I would say 1 in 100,000. They want your phone in every case. It doesn't matter if you're speeding. They want your Waze app open to see how fast you were going. They want evidence no matter what you're doing.
Well, and, like Matt brought up a great point that I hadn't thought about when I was doing show notes and thinking about this was the child porn aspect. Like, I get that. But I would argue that the majority of the instances are probably on a computer, which is like how they find out in the first place. I mean, I know that's not absolute, but if it's on a computer, then I would argue that you have sufficient evidence to move forward and you don't need to just keep going. Like, I don't know. The idea of trying to compel someone to open their phone when you have other evidence just seems...
Here's the thing. No matter how heinous, or if you've seen My Cousin Vinny, hyanous, the crime, it doesn't mean that my rights as a citizen should be trampled.
Right.
We go after the criminals and we use every legal means accessible, but it doesn't mean we go after everyone. And look, this is not in the show notes. It is sort of related. There was I don't even know of a comatose person. What I mean by comatose, vegetable. No brain activity that gave birth. And this was after being a vegetable for quite a long time, and the police were seeking to compel every male employee in the facility to give a DNA sample to find out who the baby belonged to, without probable cause. They're not saying, "Hey, we have a idea that this guy could have done it or should have done it or he had access or anything else." But every male employee was to submit his DNA. And that is the sort of slippery slope that we look at with, if we think a crime's been committed in company XYZ, give me all your cell phones and unlock all of them so we can look and see who's the perpetrator. And by the way, while we're looking, I've got your bank records and you've been making a lot of cash deposits.
Right.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, technology, I don't think our rights should change or be altered or limited simply because technology is changing, but it's definitely put an interesting spin on how everything is interpreted, and it's not as cut and dry as it used to be, I don't think. At least...
Well, they've been doing it to the Second Amendment for 150 years. And saying, oh, the technology's changed. The framers didn't intend. Well, the framers didn't intend for the internet to be... the framers didn't intend for the typewriter to be in existence. But for some reason, we seem to hold on to this archaic idea that people should have the freedom of speech.
Right. No, my favorite meme that addresses that is the one where it's like, look, when you write your anti-gun argument on parchment with a quill pen and an inkwell and have it delivered to me by some guy on horseback, then we'll begin to discuss how you're wrong.
Right. Basic human rights don't change based on technology. The Fourth Amendment stands on its own without worry about technology changing. You should still, not that the Fourth Amendment means anything, be secure in your property and your papers.
Well, and talking about eroding our rights, I found this statistic, or not a statistic, but this bit of information that said the Justice Department's electronic surveillance manual, which is what governs the way that they can, gather information, is 228 pages long. I'm assuming that's not like the size of the pages in a James Patterson novel. I'm assuming those are the standard 8.5 by 11. Like, that's a lot of information to govern how we can be investigated and surveilled. And electronics have only given them more authority to ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Absolutely. And that has been the modus operandi of intelligence agencies for a while. Is it legal? Well, let's find out. We're not going to go ask permission. If we get busted, at least we'll get a bad guy off the street and we'll deal with it then.
Working out well in every regard. Can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, it's great. Everything works out great for the state. And, and I've said before, back in the mid-'90s, we knew the NSA had the technology to listen in on allegedly international phone calls only and pick out, had a computer algorithm that could pick out individual words and would tie into the conversation. And being international, of course, you don't need a warrant. And they would pick up things like jihad or whatever else was going on. This is obviously years before 9/11. And they would drop in and drop out of these conversations based on key words that were going across in whatever language. It had several languages. You can only imagine in the years since then how much better that technology's gotten.
Oh, right. I don't listen to Edward Snowden talk about it.
Man, I'm not a big Snowden fan. And did I tell you why? He exposed sources and methods on international operations. If he
too bad they were using them here.
If he stopped with what they were doing domestically, he'd be a hero. When he showed what was going on at the G7 or whatever else about the internet cafe, he violated the exposing sources and methods. Go ahead, Jessica. Go ahead. I mean, I'm saying this from a guy that many years ago was on the inside of a little tiny slice of that.
Sure, and I understand that perspective and why you would say that, and I get that. It's just, I feel like what was happening here was more important, that it was such a violation of individual liberties of Americans that it should have been revealed at any cost.
Oh, no, I agree, but why did he have to go into the international stuff that he had access to? What was going on here was so heinous as it was. Why did he have to go and give the government legitimate reason to uphold a warrant?
So I guess I would ask why we're doing those things over there anyway.
It's what's done. Everybody does it. We spy on the British, and they spy on us. And it's one of those things where when you get caught, there's no penalty. Like, they just throw you back. It's sort of like, sure, a foul ball. You just kind of throw it back into play. It's good.
Oh gosh!
But it's one of those things that's done. It just is on the international scene. Everybody knows who's talking to anybody. It's just. Look, I looked at joining the company many years ago, and there's some. This is all public stuff.
The NSA.
CIA is the company.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening.
Looked at joining the company many years ago with my background, and they talked about that. Is sort of like it's no harm, no foul with our allies, that we kind of expect it, they expect it. If you get busted, they say, okay, don't come back, and they throw you back into back into your country and stuff. So I know we're getting way off on that. It's just Snowden didn't have to go into the international stuff, which is, as much as you say, well, why can't we know? It's legal to do it. What was going on domestically was not legal, nor was it proper. So that's my soapbox on that. Anyway, and I'm sorry, that's not even where we were going with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what happens when air traffic control goes out for a coffee break.
Listen, I was about to hop off the call if you were going to say that you applied at the NSA or something and be like, all right, well, Y'all can carry this ship on home. I'm done.
I never applied. I looked at it. But no, it wasn't the NSA anyway. I'm not smart enough for that. It was CIA. Like NSA employs like really smart computer people. And as you can tell by the way I handle my computer on this damn podcast, there's no way that I'm qualified to be in the NSA. They wouldn't let me mop the floors at the NSA. So, into the blood pressure portion of our program this evening. The Georgia legislature proposes an exemption for military veteran retirement income. HB 7, sponsored by Jesse Petra, Bill Hitchens, Shaw Blackman, Heath Clark, Mike Glanton, and Dave Belton, would exempt military retirement pay from Georgia income tax, including any survivor benefits derived therefrom. And this is something that I alluded to last week, with saying a friend of mine is stumping for this, and that's Micah Gravely, who's a rep from Paulding County. He's not my rep, but he is a rep in the area, and I consider him a friend. How wrong is he, Jessica?
The wrongest. This is, I'm going to let you guys dominate the conversation on this one as veterans, but I just feel like a principled person would advocate. It's like a principled person would first of all advocate for everyone, for all Georgians, not select groups. And second, if this does harm to veterans, then it does harm to the rest of us. So stop the harm. And if it doesn't do harm, if you're going to say actually it doesn't do harm, then you're just creating a special class of people. So which is it? Are you admitting that it does harm, or are you creating a special class of people? Tell me. If you can't answer those questions, if you're the wrongest. If you answer those questions, your answer's probably wrong and you're still the wrongest.
Or they answer it correctly and they're just what? Hypocrites?
The wrongest.
The wrongest.
Take it away.
Matt, as a veteran, I find it cold outside. Okay.
We should call Chris Collins.
All right. Sorry, guys. We're going to get off on a quick hog trail. Matt and I are in a group where a guy who we've made reference to many times about, everything he says is he's one of the guys that wears the I'm a veteran shirt everywhere. So everything he answers on Facebook is as a veteran. So I decided I was going to be Matt Lowe one day, and I went to every one of his responses and said, as a veteran, I find it cold outside. As a veteran, I like bourbon. Whatever it is, I just started answering as a veteran. So that's where that comes from, is I just decided to be Matt Lowe, because we didn't have Matt Lowe on this site for a week while he was on the cruise. And I just decided that it just needed a troll, and I'd become him. So anyway, neither Matt nor I are Army retirees. So this would not apply to us either way.
However,
if you're just looking for shielding because I am not a separate class of citizen because I wore green.
Right, yeah, that's the thing that gets me, man, is, look here, when I signed that paper, right, I did it for very selfish reasons. Right?
Was it for the benefits?
Yeah, it was for the benefits and the money, right? It wasn't because I wanted to go die for you, Jessica. I didn't give a shit about your freedom, right? That's not why I signed that paper. I care about your freedom. I care about your freedom now.
I don't think you do, because you support public lands, but I won't get into that.
No, I support your ability to recreate on millions of acres of public land.
Now I will say I joined, and And I joined younger than you did, Matt. I didn't give a damn about the money or anything else. I joined because I want to serve my country. And I had a big stockpile of testosterone that needed to be focused somewhere. So I joined for the right reasons. I absolutely wanted to serve my country, and I was honored to do so, and I got to do so with some really, really great people. I also got to serve my country with some turds.
Right.
But I was able to serve my country with some folks that I consider heroes, and I was very fortunate to do so. But it's something that I signed up to do. Now, and I know I get hammered with this. No retiree was drafted into retirement. This is a choice that has been made. Even if you were talking about somebody who's 70 years old, was drafted in 1970, went to Vietnam for 2 tours and came out in 72 when that ended, he still re-upped all the way to 1990 when he retired.
Right.
And the idea that veterans and retirees are some poor underclass that needs your handout, needs to be considered special, is really offensive. Because some of these guys are generals who are, you say military retirees. Some of these guys' retirement is bigger than most Georgians. I mean, they're in the mid 6-figure, well, not mid 100 to 200,000. Harry, remember, Colin Powell is a military retiree.
Right.
So is General Mattis. These guys aren't scraping to make ends meet. Not that I'm saying that it should be means tested. Now, if you want as a state to start doing things incrementally and saying we're not going to tax any retirement income, okay. At least that's a step in the right direction. Where we say that you've paid your dues all the way to 65. We're not going to tax you beyond that. Sort of like some counties do.
Right. Not Paulding.
Not Paulding. No, Lord, no. Paulding County's not going to give up that money. They're going to fleece you for every dollar you've got and go build airports and movie studios and everything else they can friggin' think of to spend my money on besides infrastructure. Sons of
Yeah, those property tax bills have me a little irritated too.
Yeah, and schools turning out morons. I've never paid more to get less out of anything than public schools.
Right. I looked at my breakdown today on my mortgage statement. Nearly half of my mortgage payment goes to taxes and required insurances.
And look, it's back on subject. I'll play air traffic control for Jessica here.
Right.
This is not about reducing the tax burden on anybody. It's about playing friggin' politics.
Oh yeah, it's good. Here's the thing: no one's gonna oppose this except people like us. Right?
What looks better on a mailer than we gave a tax credit to veterans?
Right.
Well, what about the Coast Guard?
Screw them.
Right. What about the police? What about firefighters? What about
they helped
the guy
them last year?
What about the guy?
Firefighters got their special health care plan.
Yeah, they did. What about the guys that work the railroad?
Thanks to your wrongest legislator again.
Yes. Yeah. What about the guys who work the railroads? What about truckers, the backbone of the economy? And guys who are on the front lines with terrorism, keeping eyes on the roads. Truckers do a lot in this country besides just stink and hang out at lots and pick up and work in sex trafficking.
Just stink.
work in sex trafficking.
Oh, Lord have mercy. These opinions are ours, actually Dave's, and not those of All on Georgia.
By the way, we want all the stars.
All the stars on the ratings.
Everything to the right. Good Lord.
And tell your friends. unless they're truck drivers.
They do more. We're gonna get Dave a shirt that says truck drivers on the front, and on the back it says they do more than stink.
It beats the hell out of nickels. No, but what makes a military veteran any more important to the daily operations of this country than anybody else who has worked 40 years and worked their asses off to provide for their family and advance our country? I don't care what you do for a living. If you're a roofer, if you're a banker, if you do whatever, you did your part to advance our society. For
the strippers.
Oh, thank God. Blessed are the whores, for they care not how you look.
Right.
For some reason, that was omitted from the Sermon on the Mount. If we want to say that we're going to exempt all retirement income, which some states do, and in the story, they used the example of states like Florida. Florida has no income tax. Why would you compare Florida not taxing military retirement income with Georgia when Florida doesn't tax income at all?
I thought it was beautiful. Like, what kind of idiot says, well, the state next to us can afford to tax no one? Like, what?
Right. And so can we. You know, and Georgia loves to pat themselves on the back about the low income tax and everything else. Like, well, yeah, you tax us on gas, you tax us everywhere else, and you're gonna pat your back on that. And there's nothing worse than watching our state reps come back, dislocating their shoulders, patting themselves on the back for giving us a 0.75% tax cut on income. And it's unbelievable. No, I shouldn't say that. It is believable. Because they're politicians, and that's what they do. And this is to do nothing more than pat themselves on the back, surround themselves with a bunch of guys in VFW gear, and say, look what I did for these guys.
Yep. Photo opportunity. Campaign mailers for the next time around. Because if you oppose it, you're an asshole.
Well, so far I've been against the children, school safety, veterans, the handicapped, police officer education,
firefighters with cancer.
Well, I'm talking about this year.
Oh, that's just this session. My bad.
That's in last year's yearbook. I mean, but if you're consistent, this is what it looks like. You just want it to be equal for everyone. Like, I thought that the Libertarian Party of Georgia, Ryan Graham, he ran for public service commissioner, and I liked him then and voted for him, of course. But I loved the way that they put it. He said, while we applaud the attempt to allow some Georgians to keep the full value of their hard-earned retirement, we cannot support the bill. If the sponsor recognizes the harm done by income taxes, we encourage him to put forth a bill eliminating the state income tax, protecting all Georgians from those harms, not just a few. Like, if you can't understand that, then you just love government.
No, it is giving a token back, because it really, military retirement income is such a small piece of the income of the state. They're not giving anything up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're giving up.
It's very specific the way it's military retirement income, not military income, because they sure as hell are not giving up the state income tax for Columbus or Fort Stewart or anybody else that comes through here on TDY orders. They're not giving that up.
Right.
No, that'd be ridiculous. They're mad that they have to give up the income for anybody who's deployed. And since everybody's been deployed constantly since 2001, the state's still pissed about that.
Well, and if you think that they don't run this through the fiscal office to see the effect, which they do, they all get these letters on their desks that we don't get to see. But on the day that they vote, they have a letter that says what the impact will be on the budget, one way or the other. So if you don't think that they haven't analyzed that ahead of time to know how much they're going to, quote, lose, and that they decided, okay, well, it's worth it.
Right.
for some campaign mailers. I mean, that's what this is about.
Oh, it is absolutely a Republican incumbent re-election act. Because, look, the folks in solid blue districts don't care. I mean, they're going to be fine voting against it. And the ones who are in the blue-collar rural areas, they'll vote for it just to be on there. They'll put their names on it, too. I can't think of anything more insulting than being used as a political tool to get somebody reelected. And that's what's happening, is being singled out as military retirement. It is being nothing more than a mascot for them. And I see by them, I mean scum-sucking politicians that want nothing more than to be reelected, who don't serve on principle. It's nothing more than be able to pound your chest and say, "Look what I did for these people that we all love."
Well, let's move on to the next uplifting.
I knew I would suck the oxygen out of the room, Jessica. I'm sorry. And you know, like I said, the hard thing is the fact that I really like one of the people that is signing off on the bill. It's wrong. So, speaking
of wrong,
speaking of worthless legislation, the Democrats have proposed legislation to require scooters, Segways, electric wheelchairs to be registered with the DMV.
This dumbass is the same one that proposed the trucking bill we talked about last week. Or the anti-trucking bill.
So, I'm the wrong person to be talking about this one at the moment, because I just got off the cruise ship where, there was just a bunch of fat asses who were too damn lazy to walk running around all over that ship.
Easy.
With these stupid scooters, beeping their little horn. Watch out, Big Mike's coming through. I wanted to clothesline Big Mike is what I wanted to do. And he would cut, it's the same dude. I saw him every day. He would cut in through the food lines and talk to the guy ahead of me. He'd be like, "Hey, I'm going to get this. I'll be back to get it." And I'm like, "Hey, there's a line, buddy, and you're not at the end of it." So I may have a small personal bias at the moment that hopes that if this passes and they do have to register it, then maybe there won't be as many assholes with those things on cruise ships.
Well, I said that the DMV building should be handicap inaccessible. So anybody that gets up the stairs doesn't need it.
Right.
Actually, Jessica, I read the legislation, and it specifically exempts anybody who already qualifies for a handicap parking space.
That's correct. And I hate to make assumptions about the intention of a law, but I would like to assume that this is about the scooters that we're all seeing around town, the Lime and Bird and Skip and whatever they're called, because people are upset about them and they want to tax them. Of course, it's just like Uber. When there was some free market solution to something, they had to tax it and regulate it. But if they wanted to do that, I don't understand why they wouldn't say, instead of putting this on items like the way that they have with the broad language, why wouldn't you say this applies to company or devices that are made available for rental?
I would guess that's because they don't want it to pass, but they want to go to their constituents and say, "I tried."
Well, normally I would agree, but this is Donzella James, who is the same woman, like I said, who introduced the trucking bill, and as soon as she introduced it, after the bad publicity that she got in half of a day, she withdrew the bill. So I'm inclined to believe that this woman doesn't really do any research on the initiatives she proposes, and then after everyone shoots holes in it, she's like, "Well, I'm not going to move forward with it." which kind of is in line with what you're saying, but she doesn't even do any, like, I mean, I think her constituents would be very upset because not everyone who is handicapped has a handicap parking permit.
Well, you're right. You're right. And I think, well, is it that they qualify for a handicap permit? So basically, if a doctor has prescribed you, handicap, that you would be you'd be exempt from this. But I'm wondering if this has more to do with the revenue lost from millennials using Skip or whatever the hell else it's called.
Oh, those scooters that are laying on the sidewalks all over Atlanta?
Yes, and Segways and stuff.
Yeah, and that's lost revenue for the state because millennials, as we said earlier, aren't buying cars. They're living in town.
That's because they're $60,000.
Yeah, well, that, and there's no place to park them. If you live in town, you can get an Uber, you can get a Lyft, or you can get on one of these stupid scooters and go around town and do what you've got to do. So it's a changing economy as these millennials and what are they now? Gen Zs, the 18 to 21 year olds or whatever.
The ones after millennials.
Yeah, that are coming up is
the ones after Jessica.
Yeah, they're not investing in hard assets. They're not buying houses. They're living in apartments, and they're not buying cars. So they're using these ride share services, things like that. And the government is scared they're losing revenue.
So just to go back on what you said and to ask a question, I've never applied for a handicap permit, so I don't know. But the legislation says that you have to be a holder of a handicap parking permit issued by the Department of Revenue. Does that mean do you have to pay for those permits?
I assume you do.
So when I was married to my first wife, we had a very, very disabled child. And we did get one of those little, hanging on your mirror thing. And I want to say that it was like $5 for that thing. So there's
still though,
there's a small negligible cost associated with it. Yes.
I understand, and I'm not saying that it's too much but the point is that regardless, like, this is all encompassing to make sure that everyone is paying something to use anything.
Right.
And we don't require mopeds and golf carts to be registered, so why a scooter?
That's because the people in Peachtree City and the people in Johns Creek would lose their friggin' minds if they tried to tax golf carts.
Because Donzella James was at the Walmart and somebody ran over her foot. That's why.
No. It was the Walmart in Texas where the woman was arrested for riding her personal scooter and drinking wine out of a Pringles can. No, she wasn't arrested. She was banned from, now let me put this in Southern, she was banned from the Walmart. At 6:30 in the morning, driving her scooter around the parking lot, drinking wine from a Pringles can.
Listen, if you've been to Walmart during high times, you can totally understand why she'd want to be drunk.
Right.
Well, it's probably, you have to wonder who called the police, because that's a show I want to see. It had to be one of the fat asses who couldn't find a cart and saw the cart out there doing donuts with a chick drinking wine from a Pringles can.
This show, like, we've gone after veterans.
And
chicks,
look,
fat asses.
As a fat ass veteran.
But you're not a chick.
Well, no. Not last time.
Do you find that the term chick insulting, Jessica?
No.
No. Okay. I didn't think you would. I was just curious because some women do.
Do we want to keep going with different terms for chicks and find out where her line is?
I'm a woman. Like, these terms are not. Plus, I think it also depends on. Chick, I don't think is offensive regardless of who it's coming from, even if it's meant in a condescending tone. But I think it matters, like, who it's coming from, you know.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. Like if it was your boss and he was being demeaning and he's like, "Look, honey,"
which I did last week. Not that I'm Jessica's boss, but before we went into a sexual harassment thing, I just figured I'd give her a little harassment. No, look, here's the thing: is as a fat guy and somebody who is pretty well injured, I will limp around on my crutches before I get on one of those things.
Right?
Because I'm not that fat, but I'm just fat enough that people might look twice, and I refuse. I will drag myself around like an extra from The Walking Dead before I get on one of those damn things.
Right? I mean, look, if you're 70 years old and have an amputated leg, fine. I'm down with that. You can get on it, beep around all day.
And that's who it's for. We're getting way off a subject on that because we were talking about scooters on sidewalks and stuff. But yeah, and what defines a handicapped and man, I don't know. This has that icky feeling, like the government is looking forward to figure out that they are going to miss out. They're already missing out on DUI fees with Uber and Lyft because people have figured out that it is $9,970 cheaper to take an Uber home from the bar than it is to get a DUI.
So, hold on. I got a question, though, real quick. And admittedly, I have not read the entire piece of legislation.
Or any of it.
So, if it falls under, if they now fall under the purview of the DMV, does that mean that they get regulated in the same way? And require certain things to make them street legal? Like, are we talking headlights and blinkers and seatbelts now? And am I going to have to dodge these damn things in the road?
Well, they're not allowed to be on sidewalks, so yes, they have to be used in the road or in bike lanes. The legislation doesn't require any of the things you mentioned, but I would imagine that if they make this so that they're registered with the DMV and there's more, quote, street use, that you're going to, the next step is to make more safety requirements. I mean, that was the argument on one of my posts, was we need safety regulations for these things. And I'm like, well, don't you just assume that you're going to be safe? Like, you assume that risk when you step on one of these scooters and put it in a damn roadway. I mean, that's kind of a personal choice there. So of course, I'll be against whatever it is, no matter what it is. But I would assume that would be the next step.
My question would be, and once it's handed over to the DMV, is it no longer legislative changes that are done? The DMV at that point is empowered to decide how they are going to regulate those devices.
Right, which is terrifying.
It's what happened with the EPA and the Clean Air Act is, in my industry, every time they change refrigerants and it costs homeowners thousands of dollars, those are not legislative changes. Those are changes from the Clean Air Act of 1971 or whatever it is that gave the EPA sweeping powers to regulate the industries. So once you hand it over to somebody like the DMV, they can decide that you're going to need a certain license to operate this, or you're going to have to bring it in for emissions testing or safety testing or whatever else that they can fleece you for.
Well, and I was disappointed that, I mean, if you're going to do this, like, set some parameters like what you're talking about to limit what the agency can do. Like, oftentimes we'll see them cap fines or fees in legislation so that the agency doesn't get carried away, or because then it goes into effect and then you have to wait an entire year to fix it.
And the good news is it's not going to pass.
Right.
Well, it is sponsored by Democrats, but I would not be surprised if we don't see some Republican initiative on this, because cities like Athens and Atlanta have already passed local legislation to restrict these places, and Statesboro is working on it because we have a huge Lyme problem with the students. But I honestly think that there is some state level legislation like this coming.
And there may be. I don't think it's going to be in the next 2 sessions. I mean, first of all, it's been sponsored by the Three Stooges. And they lost all their credibility with the semi bill, the Papa Loves Mama bill. And I know you're too young, Jessica. There's a song by Garth Brooks about a trucker who's angry at his wife.
I know the song, and I've seen him in concert. Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear that. As Ron White said, I wouldn't camp out 3 days if I was camping. Talking about getting Garth Brooks tickets.
I got Garth Brooks tickets for the March 1996 show because I was quick to dial Ticketmaster.
Good for you, Matthew. Did you ride your scooter there?
I don't know, man. I drove. Took Marta.
So.
Yeah, and bringing this plane back towards the runway.
Yeah, I was going to say it's time for closing thoughts. Matt, since you're returning.
Oh man, I got nothing.
Public lands. Jessica, what have you got?
I just think that if you're listening to this, you should be writing your lawmakers at least once a week. If you care enough to listen to this podcast, you should care enough to, 1, follow us on all the social media platforms, and 2, write your lawmakers every single week about what they're doing. Every week. Send them an email. Or every day, I don't care.
Oh, you know what? I do have a closing thought.
It better not contradict mine.
It doesn't.
Okay,
No, you. All right, so it kind of happened because he said public land, and then you started talking about lawmakers, right? And so anytime someone mentions public land, I think of my home state of Montana, right? And then you start talking about the legislature. Well, the state legislature of Montana meets every 2 years, so they get a full year reprieve from the state, wallet around in their wallet, and that might be a good thing for Georgia.
It'd be a great thing for Georgia if they met once every 2 years for 30 minutes.
Right.
My final thought is thank you to those who comment on our Facebook, even those who think that we got the stories wrong. Thank you. Send your comments in. I hate to tell you, we're not.
Except for Jessica on her public lands thing. She's wrong, but whatever.
But yeah, once again, please give us
Okay, Kim.
all the stars. Share us with your friends. Even if your friends don't want to listen, tell them to download it anyway as a personal favor. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us. So thank you for listening to episode 49. For Matt Lowe, Jessica Szilagyi, I'm Dave Roberts. Talk to you next week.
Toodle.